Okay, so welcome back. Here's what we're going to be looking at today. A lot of people have asked if I could show how to make some animation to the candies, and there's two ways I'm going to do that. In order to do that, I didn't want to have to make all of the animations myself, so here is something I found at opengameart.org. It's Creative Commons by attribution, which means that if you use this in a project, you have to make sure that you're attributing the person who made them, which in this case is Jerome. If you download the PNG, you get this, a nice little sprite sheet. And so the animation that's happening here is this little shine, and then there's a 2-frame animation for it being destroyed. So we're going to implement those, and then I can also talk about some different animation methods that we can use to give some more life to our game. So yeah, I'll put the link for this down in the description below. All right. So once you have this art asset downloaded, we're going to I'm just going to pull it into my art folder here. And then there's a few things I need to do to it. So these are made so that each individual dot is 100 by 100. So I'm going to go to my pixels per unit, make sure it's still at 100. My sprite mode I'm going to change to multiple. And I go to my sprite editor. It's going to ask me to apply my settings. And what I want to do here, I could just use slice, but slice will probably see all these, or sorry, not slice. I could use automatic slicing, but that would probably see all of these little bubbles as their own thing. So instead, I'm going to go grid by cell size, and each size here is 100 pixels by 100 pixels with no offset and no padding. So I'm going to click slice. You can't see it very well, but if I click on any of these, it's now turned them into individual images. I'm going to click apply to apply this. Cool. And now if I exit my sprite sheet, if I click the little arrow next to it, I can see that this turned each of these into their own individual piece. So generally that's fine, but there's something I want to do to make my life easier here. I'm going to go, where did I put it? I just had it up. There we go. I want to go to my sprite editor, and the way it slices is left to right, top to bottom. So I want to zoom in here, and I want to rename these individually. And it takes a hot minute, but it's going to be worth it in just a minute here. So I'm going to rename these and just kind of fast forward through that. Okay, so now that I've got all of these pieces cut out, what I want to do here is I'm going to make one quick adjustment. I don't want these to be exactly one unit, because then they're kind of pushed up against each other, and I want to have a little bit of space there. So I'm going to go back to my art and back to my main sheet that has my, I don't know, you can call these candies, I guess, or little bubbles, smiley faces, whatever has my art on it. And I'm going to reset this pixels per unit. Let's try 116 and click apply. Just because I want there to be a little bit of space in between these. I'm actually going to put a little bit more. Let's go 124 and click apply. Yeah, that's better. Okay, cool. So that'll resize everything that was in here. Now I want to make my animations. So let's get started on that. Okay, so what I want to do here is take a look at my pieces, and I'm going to start with this dark green piece here. I'm just going to kind of isolate it for a second. Now what I want to do is I want to create two different animation states. I want to create one for idle, where it's just kind of sitting there, and I want to create one for shine. Now your idle doesn't have to just be sitting there. You can have it, I don't know, like kind of gently pulse in and out. You can have it kind of plort down every once in a while. You can do whatever you want to with your idle state. I'm going to make my idle just kind of sit there. So what I want to do is I'm going to select that dot, and I'm going to go to my animation window. And if you don't have your animation window open right now, you can just go to window and then choose animation. So with the animation window open, I'm going to click Create, and it's going to ask me where I want to save this animation. So I'm going to choose the animation folder. I'm going to create a new folder within that called Piece Animations, and then inside there is where I'm going to put this. And so this is kind of the darker green, so I'm just going to call it green dot, or actually we'll call it piece idle. And this is just going to be the idle animation for the green piece. And the idle animation is just this sitting exactly as it is right now. So in order to communicate that, I'm going to go to my art folder. I'm going to grab inside my candies. I'm going to find that green one here, this one. I'm just going to pull it directly into my dope sheet. That's what this is called, a dope sheet. So that I just have that one key. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do for this. Now, I'm going to create another animation for this. So I'm going to go to Create New Clip. And this is going to be green piece, let's call this Shine. And this is going to be the animation for the shine. And so this is going to take 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm going to grab those, 2, 3, 4, and 5, pull them in. And if you notice, it makes them super, super short. Doesn't take very much time at all. If you hit play, you can see a sample of that animation, see how fast it goes. What I want to do here is you can either space these out, which is totally fine to do. So I'm going to have this take a little less than a full second. So I'm going to pull this last key to 0.50. The first key, I just want the first one, not the first and second. First key I'm going to pull to 0, 0. And then I'm going to pull these to, let's do 0.35. And 0.2 is what I was looking for. There we go. So now if we, yeah, it's a little slow. Let's try that again. Nope. Nope. And then way back here. Okay, cool. That's a little better. You can also change this by changing your samples. I'm just going to adjust this a tiny bit more here so that I know what I want to use for the other ones. Okay, cool. Now, when we actually use this animation, it's not going to loop like that. It's going to go through one cycle of the animation and then switch back to the idle. So there we go. And the last one I want to create is, I'm going to call this green piece pop. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to find, let's see, we want 6, green 6, and we want green 7. And I'm going to do a couple things here just to make this a little more lively, because it's just 2 frames. Right, you can barely even tell what's going on there. Let's move that out. Oh, haha, that's why. So I'm going to take this last key. I'm going to duplicate it. So copy. I'm going to go out to, say, 0.3. I'm going to paste it there. And so it's just a really, really simple pop animation where we have this one where it's kind of going away, and then here it turns into those, and then it stops existing. So what I want to do here is I'm going to copy this frame again, go out just a little bit, I'm going to paste it there. Now, to have the idea that it's popping, I'm going to go to the second, so like I've got this one here, which is the beginning of the pop, and then this one here when it actually starts doing the pop, I'm going to have that be pretty much the same size. I'm going to put this on record so that it records my changes. I'm going to go to the next keyframe, this one here. I'm going to make this slightly larger, so let's say 1.5 for the scale. And then I'm going to go to the last key, and I'm going to make this even bigger, let's say 2 by 2. Now, because I changed the size key, if you go back here, you'll notice that the size keys are off on some of the other ones that I didn't want to change. Like this one that I wanted to be normal is 1.25, and this one that I'm using to start is 1, but I wanted this one to be 1.25, or sorry, 1 right there, this key. So with those selected, I'm going to change my scale to be 1 and 1. And that way, it's a little more effective for just 2 frames of animation. There's a few other things you could do. So like here, I'm going to hard code my rotation in as 0, 0, 0. And then on the next key, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees on the Z. Let's not do 90. Let's do 45 on the Z-axis. And then another 45 on the Z-axis for the last one. And then that means, again, that I have to make sure that this one here has a 0 degree rotation on the Z-axis. All right, so let's try that. It's not too bad. It's not great. Now, one thing that's happening here is it's mechanically, or not mechanically, but linearly changing between each of these. So it's linearly changing the scale. So if you go halfway, it's half of the scale change. If you go a quarter of the way, it's a quarter of the scale change. But that's not how things in nature change. Things in nature have a usually what's called a sinusoidal change curve. So down here, and I didn't really go over this last time, but I totally could have. We want to go to curves, and we want to take a look at the different things we're animating here. Now the solid blue line, this doesn't change at all. That's the sprite that we're changing. But the green line, oops, I'm going to zoom in a little further here. The green line is the scale, I believe. And so I'm going to just grab the handles on that a little bit so that rather than having it be this straight curve up, there is a bit of a jump to it. I'm actually going to go up like that on it too. And then I'm going to grab the red curve. Probably have to zoom in to grab it. Grr. Oh, okay. There we go. There's the rotation property. All right. And I'm actually just going to change this a little bit just by grabbing this handle there and this handle down here. All right, cool. Now, if I play this animation now, you can't really tell, can you? All right, well, whatever. Go back to the dope sheet. Zoom in here. All right, so scale, scale. Yeah, that's not too bad. All right, cool. Now, I have my 3 animations here for my green piece. I have my idle, I have my pop, and I have my shine. Now, I'm going to repeat the same process for my other 5 pieces here. For my green dot, my indigo dot, orange, red, and salmon. So I'm going to kind of fast forward through this because this isn't something that should, because I'm just doing the exact same thing again and again and again and again. So I'm going to do my light green dot next, and like I said, I'll fast forward. So catch you back here in a minute. Okay, so welcome back. So now we've got all of these animated here. We have our 3 different animations we want for each of them. We have idle, pop, and shine. So now what we want to do is we want to go to the animator. The animator window can be, if you don't already have it open from when we were messing around with it earlier, you can find it under window and animator. Don't do animator parameter, and there's one more I think that we, like there's animator and there's animation. I don't know. There's another one that you don't want to do, but we're using animation and animator. Anyway, back here for animator. And if you click on any one of these that we've animated, you'll see that it's already created this kind of web. I'm going to make this bigger so that we can, no, not what I meant to do. So that we can all look at it together. Maximize. All right, cool. So if you want to navigate on here, if you use your middle mouse button, you can pull it around. And if you grab any one of these pieces, you can drag it around as well. And it creates this little web, whichever one is whichever one you created first is the default state. But let's say that you wanted shine to be the default state. All you have to do is choose another animation, right click, and then set it layer as default state. So if you made the shine first, but you want to make idle the default state, you just have to right click idle and choose make default state. Okay, so I'm going to create a little web here. As soon as we enter, I want it to go to the idle, and then on a certain interval, I want it to go from idle to shine. So I'm going to make a transition from idle down to shine, and a transition from shine back to idle. Now, when the pop happens, I want that pop to happen either when it's idling or when it's shine. So what I could do is I could make a transition from idle to pop or from shine to pop so that it'll catch on both. But since this is something I want to happen in any state, I can just drag from any state to blue piece pop. And I'm going to make a couple different parameters here. The first parameter I'm going to make is a bool, which is I'm just going to call popped, and I'm going to make another bool, which I'm going to call shine. And these are just true or false values. Now I'm going to use these Boolean values here, so let me unmaximize. I'm going to use these Boolean values here to determine when the animation should happen. So to do that, instead of clicking on the state, I'm going to click on the transition, which is the white line in between, and you'll see that white line turn blue. I want to take out the exit time. I want to take out the exit time. And yeah, I'm going to add down here in the conditions, I'm going to add when popped is true, it goes from any state to blue piece pop. And then here for blue piece idle, I want it to go from idle to shine. I'm going to click plus, and I want it to go from idle to shine when shine is true. But I don't want idle to have an exit time. And then it'll play the shine, and then if I don't put a condition on this one, it'll just automatically transition back to idle when this animation is done playing. So yeah, there we go. That's the setup I want to have for each of these. So I have these two different variables, popped and shine. Pay close attention to how you write these because we're going to be using these variables in code as strings, which means that we have to make sure that whenever we're referencing them exactly as they appear here. So yeah, again, I'm going to fast forward while I set this up for the rest of them. Okay, so now I have the animator panel set up for all of my new little pieces here. One thing you want to make sure that you do before we go any further at all is choose the one that's active in the scene and click apply, so that everything that we just did is going to apply to the prefab here as well. Now, this isn't enough to make the animations work. If I hadn't put a condition for the transitions here, it would just automatically go from idle back to shine, back to idle, back to shine. And it would just be this loop, and it would be incredibly hard for your eye to look at. And then we also wouldn't have this pop animation working right now. So what we're going to do really quickly here is we're going to go into the dot script. So let's open that up. Let me find my scripts here, base game, dot. So in the dot script, I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to make a reference to the animator that's on the dot. So up here in my global variables, private animator anim. And then I don't have to use find because this is going to be, oh, hey, look. Spoilers, I recorded this video before and then I needed to come back. And I thought I had undone everything I had done, but I didn't. So yeah, we're just going to forget about this down there. That didn't happen. But in the start method, we just have to set up anim equal to get component animator. And, oh, I called it. I just want to call it anim for short. And so down here, in the start method, anim equals get component animator. Get component is relatively lightweight because we're just getting it from the same object that we currently have it attached to. So, now, what we want to do is we want to decide about how long we want to take before the shine happens. And ideally, we have each piece have a slightly different shine from any other piece. So here's how I did it. And then you can do it the same way, or you can try and do something else. So in my variables here, actually I'm just going to put this next to the animator. I'm deciding a private integer, which I'm going to call shine delay. And actually I don't want this to be an integer, I want it to be a float. And shine delay is going to be a number of seconds in between each shine. And since I want that to be random for each of these pieces, in my start method, I'm going to set shine delay. So shine delay is equal to random.range, and I want to go in between two different numbers. So I don't want to have 0 be the minimum, because then it would be shining all the time. I want a minimum that makes sense, and so I thought 3 seconds was good. And I want, 3f, because it's a float. And I want the maximum to be something that isn't too long, so I did 6 seconds. So 6f for 6 seconds. So that's our shine delay. Now, what's going to happen here is I'm going to create a teeny tiny method to execute the shine. So in my teeny tiny method here, I'm going to call this, does it have to be public? I don't think it has to be public. So this is going to be void start shine. And what this is going to do is it's going to take the anim.setBool, and the bool I'm looking for is shine, and it has to be the exact same way you spelled it in the animator window. And I want to set that to be true. And then that means it's going to transition from idle to shine. And then, okay, sorry about that abrupt cut. I don't want this to be a void, actually. I want it to be an enumerator, because I want to have the ability to have a tiny little pause. And so I'm going to call this enumerator, and I'm going to change it from start shine to start shine co. Now, first thing I'm going to do is set shine to true, and then I'm going to put in a little tiny wait. And so I don't even want it to be like even 1/10 of a second. I just want it to be 1 frame. So I'm going to call yield return. And what that'll do is when it hits yield return null, sorry. When it hits yield return null, then it's going to exit the coroutine for 1 frame. The next time it goes through the update cycle, it's going to pick up where this coroutine left off. So I just want to wait 1 frame, just tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. And then I'm going to reset that bool back to false. So shine false. Okay. Now I want to make another teeny tiny method here for the pop animation. And this doesn't have to be an enumerator. This is just going to be a void. And I'm going to call it pop animation. And then in here, all I'm going to do, oh, wait, okay. I don't want to call this pop animation. Okay, and now I want to make a teeny tiny method that's going to cause that pop animation to show up. So this teeny tiny method is going to be, we're going to call this public, because I want to be able to call it from the board method, void, and I'll call this pop animation. And in here, all I want to do is set my popped boolean to be true. So anim.setBool popped, and again, you have to type this exactly as it appeared in your parameters. I'm going to set popped to true. Okay, cool. Now I made this public so that I can go into the board class, and right now I'm going to find where we destroy our pieces. So up here I've got matches on board, refill board, decrease row, destroy matches, and it's destroy matches at where it's actually called to be destroyed. Right here, destroy all dots column row. So what I want to do is I want to call my pop animation, and I want to put in a teeny tiny wait before I destroy it. So I'm going to destroy all dots column row with a 1/2 second delay. And before that delay, I want to do all dots. Did I already cache the dot component to this piece? No, that was dumb of me. Well, it'll be fine. So all dots, column row, dot get component. Component we want to get from it is the dot component dot pop animation. Okay, cool. I'm going to save my script here. And oh, yeah. So back in the dot script, there's one more thing I forgot to do. The start shine coroutine. This is going to, Before I call that, I'm going to go to my update method. And in my update method, every frame, I'm going to count down that shine delay that I created. So I'm going to say shine delay minus equals time dot delta time to count it down. And I'm going to check to see if shine delay is less than or equal to 0. And if it is, I'm going to reset shine delay. Shine delay is equal to, I want two variables here, one that I can change and one that I don't change. So I got my private float shine delay, and I'm going to make another private float, which I'm going to call shine delay seconds. And then after I declare shine delay, I'm going to set shine delay seconds to be equal to shine delay. And then the one that I'm counting down in the update method is shine delay seconds. And I'm going to check to see if shine delay seconds is less than or equal to 0. And then I'm going to set shine delay seconds equal to shine delay. Okay. And then once the shine delay seconds, once we reset that, the other thing I want to do is I want to call my start shine coroutine. So I'm going to start coroutine, start shine co, and now I'm going to save this. So, all right, cool. I'm going to go back into Unity here, and yeah, once that's done compiling, I think that's all I needed to do to get the basics of animation working. So let's hit play. Got our goals. So I might want to have a little more spaced out, a little more time in between the shines. Let me maximize this so we can see. That, or I might want my shine animation to be a little longer. Still use a little bit of tweaking, but so there we go. We have basic animation on our sprites. Now you can kind of tell just by looking at this how it looks better with all of the shines kind of offset from one another so that not everything is shining at once. Although that could look good, it would just be tiring for the eye, I think, to have everything shine at once. Now, the other thing that you can do in order to add animation if you don't have sprites to animate is you can create animation using just the properties of the image that you have. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you what that would look like with one of my pieces here. I'm going to go with the dark green dot, and I'm going to create a new clip. I'm going to call this clip Squish. And I'm going to put this inside animation, animations, piece animations. And now the squish property I want to have just when I touch it. So like if you're using a touch screen, you want it to kind of react to your touch. So I just want it to squish down a little bit and then squish back up. So I'm going to record this, and for my state at 0, 0 for my first key, I'm going to make the scale slightly smaller. So we'll say 0.75 on Y, and we'll make the X scale slightly bigger. So say 1.2. You need to preserve the area of the piece, so those two things should multiply to be 1, and I don't think they do, but let me check. Okay, so we're going to make it just a little bit closer by saying 1.3. That way we're preserving some of the area here. And then what we want is, let's say we'll make this half a second long. At 0.30 seconds, we're going to return everything back to where it was, one by one. And then what you can do is you can animate the difference between these yourselves by making different keyframes, or you can use those curves. Since the only property I'm playing with is the scale here, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to make it so that my scale does a little bit of a bounce, which is this blue line right here. So, yeah, let's see, blue is Y? No, blue is X. So let me change, there we go. I'm going to change the Y-axis as well here. Just a little bit. Well, that's kind of a cool, I didn't mean to do that, but it's kind of a cool little animation. Okay, so I'm going to call that animation squish. Now, the best thing about doing something like this that doesn't rely on sprites, all I'm really doing here is changing the actual sprite that's there. Oh, no, I didn't mean for this to be idle. I meant for this to be squish. Okay, no, we're good. Squish is right here. There we go. Okay, that's better. The best thing that comes from having this animation only rely on the scale, that's the only property I'm manipulating, is I can apply this animation to anything now. So what I can do is I can go to this other piece here, I can go to its animator property, and if I find squish, which is going to be in my animation folder, in my animations, in my piece animations, I can find the squish animation and I can drag that in, and anything that has a scale to it can have this squish property applied to it. So I'm going to add this to the any state here. I'm going to make a transition from any state to squish, and I'm going to call this transition, and then let's actually go from squish back to idle. It's kind of a little weird here. I'm going to move this around a little bit. There we go. That's better. I'm going to create a new parameter. I'm going to call this parameter touched. So this is bool touched. And for my transition from any state to squish, I'm going to add that touched needs to be true. So any state to squish to idle. And then I can also go from any state to being popped. Now, I'm going to do the same thing to my dark green piece here that I just did to my light green, for reasons why I don't know. And I'm going to make that transition, and a transition here. I'm going to add a parameter, boolean, touched, and my transition is going to happen when touched is true. Okay, so now if I pop back into my dot script really quickly here, when I do my mouse down method, on mouse down, haha, again, sorry, I already recorded this once before, as you can see. So I already have this variable set here. This is from when I recorded this video previously. So if the animator isn't null, then we're going to set the bool touch to true. And we're going to do that on mouse down. And then on mouse up, we're going to do anim.set bool touched to false. So we're just going to, it's going to be true when we push the mouse down or touch, and it's going to be false when we let up, which means that it's going to have just that one little tiny bit where it's true. Now if I go back into Unity here, I'm going to go on the dot that I was doing this to, make sure that it's applied to everything. I'm going to hit play. Now this is only on those dark green dots, but again, like I said, I can apply it to anything that has a scale property. So maximize this really quickly. I'm going to say OK. So if I just touch one of those, it does that cool little animation. And that's something that you can do without having a sprite at all. I mean, you don't need to have anything fancy. You can have this could even be a block here, just like a colored block. And if you do that one little animation, it's really cool. And that took me no time at all. So And that's something that you can do really, really simply. Okay, so that's two different kinds of animation. That's sprite-based animation, and that's Unity mechanism-based animation. You can play around with this, like you can go nuts with animation. I am only scratching the surface, and that's on purpose. The more you play with this, the more you'll understand, and the more you will see what you can do with it. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter to find out when I post a new video. You can join my Discord, where I'm chatting pretty much every day. I'm going to put a link down in the description below to the current version of the software, so that if you want to catch up, you can. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions, and have yourselves a wonderful day.